Let's make a pop art candy drawing. So what is pop art? Here are some common examples of pop art that you may or may not have seen before. Pop art is short for popular art. Pop art began in the 1950s. Two of the famous artists that we'll be inspired by for this project are Andy Warhol and Wayne Thiebaud. Artists were fascinated with images from pop culture and used food, material items, and celebrities as their subjects, things that were popular. So let's learn a little bit more about pop art.
It was a time of optimism and post-war economic boom for many. Supermarket aisles were filled with consumer products. Advertising and glossy magazines told people what to buy and made them want to buy it. Movie stars filled the silver screen, giving rise to celebrity culture, and the youth fought for freedom. Out of this new popular culture, pop art was born. Its subjects were celebrities, comics, cans, condiments, and cuisine. Its style was flat, colourful, graphic, and commercial-like. Pop art was... Critics were skeptical. How could soup be art? But pop artists were referencing the world in which people actually lived. And as Andy Warhol put it, everything is art. In the UK, Richard Hamilton was amongst the first to reference pop culture using cutouts from American magazines. He was followed by Peter Blake and David Hockney. Together, they celebrated and questioned all things American. Over in the land of the free, however, pop art was a reaction to the introverted nature of abstract expressionism. By filling their canvases with flags, targets, and tires, Robert Rauschenberg and Jasper Johns paved the way. Then, Andy Warhol burst onto the scene with his screen prints, taking reign as the king of pop. Roy Lichtenstein turned comic books into high art, and Claes Oldenburg turned toilets into cushions. Down under, pop art started as a reaction to the conservative state of Australian art. A group called the Annandale Imitation Realists added odds and ends to their canvases in defiance. Later, the American and British pop culture explosion was embraced by Aussie artists like Martin Sharp and Brett Whiteley. By the end of the 60s, pop art's heyday was over, but its legacy had only just begun. A post-pop art emerged. In Australia, it was called popism. This new generation mined past and present pop culture and even borrowed, or appropriated, work from the past. Pop art is one of the defining and most recognisable movements of the 20th century. Today, it's more than a reflection of popular culture, it's a part of it.
So now that we've learned about the pop art movement, here are some examples of this project. So you can see that there's many different options for popular candies that you can choose from. And one thing that we're focusing on here is using interesting angles, including details of the packaging so that it's recognizable, and using contrast by choosing a contrasting color for your candy's background to make it stand out and pop out. Let's go over our directions. First, you'll need to decide what candy you want to draw. You can Google image search and find an image of a candy to draw. Here's how you can do that. So you'll want to go to Google and you can search for a candy. Let's say I wanted to search for Reese's. Then once I search for it, I can click Images and I will see lots of different images of Reese's. So find a picture that you like that you think will be the best for drawing. You can click on it. You could either print this or you can save it to the device that you're using or just look at it online while you're drawing. So after you've decided which candy to draw and you found an image, you can decide if you want to change the flavor, the logo, or the design if you'd like, or even draw the candy coming out of the package, like my example of lime heads. I chose lemon heads, but I decided to change the flavor to lime. First, we'll sketch our candies in pencil, include all of the important details. Then use a black marker to outline your pencil lines and color in your candy with your choice of materials. Just try your best to match the colors to the packaging. We'll also go over how to use value shading with a colored pencil or crayons to make things look 3D on your candy. Finally, choose a color for your background that is a contrasting color to the candy's packaging to make it stand out. Remember to draw big. You can crop your candy off the page, use different angles, include all the important details, and you can decide if you want to change your candy's details or flavor. That is totally up to you. Let's go ahead and see the demo now. So for your materials, you'll need a piece of paper, a pencil, an eraser, black markers for outlining. If you have a thin marker, like a thin point Sharpie, that would be great for the small details on the candy. Then you'll also need a reference picture of the candy that you'd like to draw. So I decided to do lemon heads, and I printed this. You don't have to print it, but if you can print, that would be a good thing to do, or you can just look at it online while you're drawing. Then you will also need some coloring materials. So I will be using some colored pencils and some markers for mine, but you can use whatever supply you have at home. So when you're starting to draw your candy, think about its packaging. What shape is it in? So this is a bag of Jolly Ranchers, or maybe you're drawing a individual Jolly Rancher, much bigger than the actual size. It has this little plastic wrapper that's twisted. Or maybe you're drawing a candy that comes in a box, like lemon heads. So it's up to you what candy you pick, but I'm gonna go over now how to draw some different types of candy packaging. So if you're drawing an individual candy like this Jolly Rancher, you might want to start with the shape of the candy. And then you would have the label here, but on the sides, we have these twisted plastic edges. You'd want to show that. And maybe the edges of the wrapper are a little bit jagged. I'm just doing a rough sketch here to show you, but that might be one type of candy shape. Now, what if your candy is in a bag? Then maybe you'd want to show the sides of the bag kind of bulging out. So I'm doing a little bit of a curved line, the top of the bag, and then maybe it has a bottom that comes out a little bit. Some texture here. Sometimes it has a little hole in the top. Another type of candy packaging might be a box. So if you want your box to look 3D and not flat, you need to draw the sides of it. So let's say it's a rectangle. I'm going to draw a regular rectangle. And then I'm going to draw the sides by using diagonal lines on 3 of the corners. I'm not going to do the diagonal line here because it would be behind the front of the box. Then I will draw the edges. And now I have a box that looks a little bit more 3D rather than just drawing the rectangle shape. Now I'll show you how to draw block or bubble letters for your candy packaging. Most candy packaging has the name of the candy in some kind of letter design using block or bubble letters. So when you're drawing your letters, let's say I'm drawing an L, I would draw the regular letter L, then I draw a shape around L, making it into a block letter. Or if you're doing a bubble letter, you can make that line more curvy. And then you're going to erase the letter in the middle. And it's really important to draw lightly when you do this so that when you go to erase that letter on the inside, it's much easier. There's a sheet on Google Classroom that you can use for more directions on how to draw bubble or block letters. So I've been working on my lemon head drawing, but I decided to change it into lime heads, which I don't think they make. So you could decide to redesign a popular candy if you'd like and come up with a different flavor. Maybe there's a flavor that you always wished they had. So here's your chance to design your own candy. When you're drawing your candy, you want to make sure that you're including the lettering design as best you can so that it's recognizable. Like how in pop art, things that are very popular, like candies, think people recognize their packaging because they know them so well. So we want to include that lettering that people recognize. Also, if there's any special logo or character that is on your candy, anything that makes your candy special, like made with real lemon juice or lemon candy, the original, you'd want to include all those things. You don't have to include the weight. This is telling us how much the candy weighs, how many calories are in it. You could if you want to. I will definitely be drawing the lemon, but I'm going to change mine into lime. And then I'm also going to draw the candies that are outside of the box. That's totally up to you, but I think that adds a little bit more to your artwork if you do that. You want to make sure that you're using observational drawing skills here. So we're observing the candy package, we're looking at all the different things that make it unique, and we're trying to include it in our drawing. Another thing to make your artwork extra interesting is putting it at an angle or zooming in on the packaging. So you don't want to draw any teeny tiny candies. A good rule is your candy should be bigger than your hand. So nothing that is smaller than your hand, bigger than your hand. So here is my lime head that I have been working on. And I'm going to continue doing a little sketching here to make it a little bit better before I outline it. Now that I've completed my sketch, I am ready to outline with my black marker, and I will be using some different sized Sharpies. I'm going to go ahead and outline my candy carefully with a Sharpie. I'm going to speed up the video, but just remember, I don't really outline this fast, and I want you to take your time. My next step is erasing all the pencil lines that are showing through, and this is going to make my candy drawing look much neater. Now I'm going to color in some of the details on my candy with markers, and I'm going to leave the rest for coloring in with colored pencil. But again, you can use any supply that you have for this. Just try your best to match the candy packaging. So when you're coloring your candy, and if you're using colored pencils or crayons, try to add some value to your artwork by using shading. So if I'm looking at this lemon here, I can see that it has a darker side, which is like the shadow side, and it has a lighter side that is white here, and that would be called the highlight. So we see some different values here, some darker yellow oranges and some lighter yellow oranges. And when you use value, it makes your artwork look a little bit more 3D. We see some value shading also on the lemon head face here and on this slice of lemon here. We see some underneath the lemons in the background. So I'm going to do that to my lime head candy. Here's how you can use value. Here's how you can get different values out of a colored pencil. So you want to press down a lot to get a dark value and let go of your pressure a little bit to get a lighter value, and then barely put any pressure on your colored pencil to get a light value. Sometimes you have to go back over it to blend it in a little bit more. So again, that would be pressing hard to get a dark value, letting go a little bit to get a medium value, and barely pressing down to get a very light value. You can also do this with a crayon, so pressing harder to get a dark value, letting go, and getting lighter. I would suggest practicing this on the back or on another piece of paper before you do it on your actual project. So I'm going to add a little bit of value to the lime here. In the example, this side is much darker, so I'm using a darker green, and I'm going to go along the edge and make a dark value by pressing down a little bit harder to get a dark green. And I'm blending it into the light green that I already colored in. So you'll be able to see the difference from if I just colored it in using one color, or if I colored it in using multiple colors and I tried to add more value. So we're gonna try to make this lime look a little bit more three-dimensional. Add a little bit of shading here with some different values. So I'm going to start with my lightest green, just color it in like I normally would. And then I see that it's a lot darker at the bottom here. So I'm going to use my darker green and go over that to add a darker value. I'm pressing down hard so I get a dark color out of this colored pencil. And I'm trying to blend it into the lighter green. Other places where I see value are on the face and underneath the lemons, or in my picture, the limes that are in the background. So I'm going to go ahead and add some value shading on those, just like I did here. Another place that I'm going to add some value shading is the candies that are outside of the box. So when I look at the picture, I see that there's a highlight or a lighter part on the candy, and there's a little bit of a shadow underneath. So I'm going to go ahead and do that with my colored pencils. Now that my candy is all colored in, I'm going to color in my background a contrasting color. So look at what the main color that your candy is. Mine is mostly green, has a little bit of blue. I'm going to pick a warm color to contrast all of the green and the blue. So I'm going to choose pink, but another option might be red or orange. Yellow is a little bit too close to green on the color wheel, but this depends on what color your candy is. So you wouldn't want to choose the same color that your candy is for your background. Choose a different color, and a good rule is if your candy is mostly a cool color, choose a warm color. Or if your candy is mostly a warm color, choose a cool color. If your candy's brown, like maybe it's chocolate, then you could choose any color. So I'm going to kind of outline here the edge of the lime heads box. That way I don't worry about coloring into the box with the pink, and I can just fill in my background. Now that my background is colored in, I'm going to add a little bit of a shadow underneath the candies that are sitting outside the box. And I'm just using a green colored pencil, and I'm layering that over the pink marker background, kind of drawing a little oval that sticks out from each lime head candy. And I'm doing this on the same side for every candy, so it's always going to be on the right side. Okay, so I am done with my pop art candy drawing. I used my reference picture that was lemon heads to change it into lime heads, and I used observational drawing skills to draw all the important details on the candy, and I tried to match the colors. I also used value by shading, and I chose a contrasting color for the background so that my candy stands out. I hope you had fun today learning about pop art and creating your pop art candy drawing. I can't wait to see what you make.